Welcome to the Sower Project, the podcast where Bible meets music, making Christian music Christian and music again, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Eric, the songwriter behind the solo project, Sower. Okay, so I'm here with my friend Chase Tremaine. He's a musician, an artist, a writer, an editor, many things. He does a whole lot of stuff when it comes to creative content, and we are talking today about passivity in modern humanity and how that's shaping music, creativity, and the church. But before we jump into the conversation, there's two pieces of business I want to get out there. Number one, so I've got a new album in the works right now and a couple songs coming out Friday, which will probably be out by the time this is done. And the artwork was designed by our friend, and so we were talking about this just a second ago before I hit record. Our friend Casey Gallenberger did the design, and so I want to give him a shout out. He's a great friend, a great dude, and if you need any design whatsoever for your artwork, anything he writes too, he's a great writer, send him an email, casey.gallenberger@protonmail.com. That's Casey, C-A-S-E-Y, .Gallenberger, Gallenberger, @protonmail.com. So I wanted to get that out there because he's great. He's done design for some of my friends. I've sent him, and he's just a hard worker, very creative, funny guy. So now the second piece of business would be, actually, just tell me, okay, Chase, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, just a quick bio, but also what are your current projects? Because I know you just had something come out and you've got something in the works. So just tell us what's going on with your music.
Yeah, and another reason Casey came up is that he just did a photo shoot for me for my upcoming album called Ready Bloom that will probably start the rollout in May. Surely no later than June. Try not to rush it, but it's been a labor of love that I've been working on for the past few years. It'll be my fourth solo full-length album, where I do kind of like Eric, like the one-man band thing, usually playing all the instruments and writing the songs. But I've also started producing music for other artists, and my specific niche is working with people who don't have access to their own instruments, or to people who play, or maybe even like don't play instruments themselves, and helping them build out a full band arrangement around their songs and kind of producing that for them. Information about that is at friends.chasetremaine.com, where I also have a membership platform, kind of a very cheap community. It's just $2 a month, but we have podcasts there and hangouts and a lot of exclusive and new music, and my album is available there already. But I would also love people to follow me on Bandcamp, where I will be rolling out the pre-order for the new album soon. But my latest release that you'll see on streaming platforms is kind of a co-release, a project called Lock and Chi, which started out as one of my Let Me Be Your Band production projects. And it was with an Australian songwriter who didn't really want to sing his songs himself, and has been sitting for years on all of these songs he's written and wasn't sure if they'd ever see the light of day. And he tapped me to help bring them to life, and we spent a lot of time working together. We ultimately decided for me to be the singer on all of his songs, and so it kind of organically morphed into an official duo, which is why we picked the name Lock and Chi. And so that is now out. It's a 5-song EP called Latitudes that I'm really stoked about.
Yeah, so they can just find that on Chase Tremaine, like all of your streaming platforms?
Yep, all the streaming platforms is out. But Ready Bloom, my new album, is not going to be released in its entirety on streaming platforms. I'll be putting out a few singles from it to help kind of spread awareness. But the full album will only be on Bandcamp and my community platform at friends.chasetremaine.com. And I'll also be doing a pre-order campaign to help fund, hopefully, CDs to be made. And so, assuming the pre-order campaign goes then it'll be on physical as well.
So the plan is to never put it fully on streaming, or just after
That is
some
the
time?
plan. My current headspace, and this might relate a little bit to things we get into later, just about kind of where the music industry is at. But my current headspace is to no longer put my full length albums on streaming services, to host those elsewhere, and for my only streaming releases to be singles and EPs.
Okay, well, that is definitely interesting. But a very important question is: did you sing these songs with an Australian accent?
I wanted to, and my wife wouldn't let me.
You should. Did you at least send some joke takes? Like, here you go, and you're like, hello, mate. Like, I don't know how you would even do that.
The problem is that my main source of Australian comes from a podcast I listen to. It's really the only podcast I listen to at this point. It's an Australian podcast. It's two great mates who just talk about movies and comics and stuff. And they have such like silly voices that they exaggerate on purpose because they're just being funny all the time. That when I try to go Australian, I just end up mimicking them, and everything gets really heightened, and I'm constantly just going up in pitch.
Well,
and it's very bad.
Funny enough, too, like a lot of times when you hear singers from Australia, you can't really tell their accent a lot of times. And I don't know if they're trying to sing in an American kind of way, but it only shows up on certain sounds and syllables, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing about singing, that a lot of singing techniques will kind of free people of some of their thicker accents.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're diving deep in already to the topic at hand.
Yeah, what is the topic again?
I think it's just us talking because we're friends and we don't talk it enough.
That's true.
But also passivity in modern humanity and how that relates to the music scene, culture, music industry, but also Christian music and the church. And I had sent, just for the audience, I had sent Chase like a few questions that I was thinking about talking about, and then he kind of wrapped it up in that topic. And I thought, yeah, that's a great like overview. So there's a few different questions to talk about that relate to this. And the reason why we think it's important is because, like, I mean, it's not music, like everything we're experiencing along these lines of culture seem to be massively affected by attention spans and passivity, and however you want to put it. I mean, there's a lot of ways to come at this. So the first question for you to kind of get this rolling: is modern music becoming more passive? So you think about algorithms, short form content, and so then on top of that, are artists creating or just reacting? So is it becoming more passive? And if so, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think the more that I look for it, the more it seems like everything in our modern culture and with modern technology is moving in the direction of human passivity. And I think that's in part because humans have a natural and often sinful bent toward passivity. Passivity versus, activity is, us taking the easier route. It's us doing nothing when we should do something, or taking the easier route instead of the better and more fruitful route. Some theologians would point to passivity as being the very first sin of Adam. To say,
I agree with that.
Like, where was he when the snake was tempting his wife and lying to her? Why didn't he interrupt that conversation? Why didn't he throw that snake out of the garden? Why wasn't he protecting his spouse and their holiness? So I think passivity has been a sinful bent that we've had ever since Genesis 3. And I think we can track a trajectory towards passivity in many of the musical trends and musical developments that have happened over the past century, and especially the past decade or two. Music used to be something that you had to personally play or sing, or you're going out to an event. You're seeing an orchestra, you're seeing a traveling band, or whatever it may be. You're going to the theater, and it became, it's like you could get music in your home with radio, or you could go out and buy a record or a CD. And now it's moved all the way to the point where, like, it's just wherever you are, you have a way to just press play and music will be there. And you don't even have to pick what you're listening to. You can just have an infinite stream of music provided to you that, is just curated on your behalf. And, as we, this conversation is going to be delving in and out of discussions about AI. And I've noticed that kind of where the music industry was 4+ years ago really tailored us as a society perfectly for AI music to slide in unawares. There's people like you and me who care very deeply about the artists that we're listening to, who, will seek out specific albums by specific bands. And, we are often very attentive toward what we listen to. But we are a very small minority in terms of the overall listening habits of first world, members of society. I think most people are listening to music to, fill in the gaps while they're doing chores, while they're driving, while they're working. And it tends to be a lot of kind of vibe and tone based listening, where our playlists that are where a lot of people are doing their music listening have been tailored to such like specific degrees of like this playlist has this type of music with this tone, these lyrical themes, these specific tempos, these specific sounds. And so you end up like whether you're listening to like, lo-fi chill beats, or you're listening to smooth jazz, or you're listening to, morning coffee house jams, like whatever it is, there has become this trend of lots and lots of people who listen to their music through these very specific tailored playlists where, if you're listening to a playlist with 100 songs in it, you might not know any of those 100 artists. And you definitely don't know all of them. And you're listening to the playlist, vibing it out, maybe not even noticing when one song goes to the next, and not really paying attention to who the artists are. You're not looking for artists where you can go eat up their entire discographies. You're not reading their bios. You're not figuring out who the band members are. You're not looking up who the songwriters are. You're just enjoying this themed playlist. And that is really like the perfect breeding ground for AI-generated music to just slip in, and it just fit in perfectly with this playlist with very specific metrics of what type of song goes there. And you're just listening to it, and it's fits in perfectly, and you don't even notice that you've switched from listening to a human to a bot to a human to a bot again.
Man, you've got me. My mind is just reeling right now because I appreciate everything you're just saying, and it's just like connecting dots in my head that I've not been able to connect for a while. But yeah, basically it's weird to me, and maybe it's my age to some degree. I'm 44. And when I grew up and I'm a musician, so my relationship to music and musicians is different maybe because of that. But it's weird to me to listen to a song and to love it and not think about who's writing this song and like do some digging. Like I have to do that. I can't not do that. I'm like, whoa, who is this person? So used to be Wikipedia. Now it's like, ChatGPT, which we'll talk about that at some point maybe. AI, like or Google even. You do a Google search now and it's AI. Like you get a generated answer up top. It's like, here's a summary of what we've researched for you. But I do that constantly, and I can't not do that. But it's just weird to me to think that there's so many people, especially younger generations, who hear a good song and don't have any clue or any desire to figure out who it is or if it's even a human.
Right. And so this other theory that's kind of been bouncing around my head related to the past one that I just shared is that I think when we put things on this, trajectory of passivity, it ends up stripping that thing of what all God made it for. And so if we think about movies, like I love movies, right?
Me too.
They are such powerful mediums for story and theme and emotional impact, as well as entertainment. And the more that we move towards passivity, both in our our enjoyment of them, as well as people who now create movies for passive intake, the more that we are stripping away subtext and theme and interpretation and emotional complexity and leaving it with just entertainment. People talk about how Netflix tries to create movies that's like second screen entertainment. They're creating stuff assuming that you're also on your phone and not really giving the movie your full attention. And so like they're intentionally making movies that are consumed very passively. And so they're created to be passive. And by doing that, you are stripping the art form of all of the good that it could have otherwise had. And I think music is even kind of more dubious in that being the case. Because movies, have existed for 100 years as, a really cool development in technology. Music has existed since the beginning of creation as one of God's very good gifts to us.
I would say that movies is a medium of storytelling. So like plays have existed since
Sure, yeah,
way back. But to your point, like, yeah, I mean the art form itself, the media or medium is newer. But yeah, the music goes deep.
Right, because again, and you talked about this a little bit in your recent podcast episode about how music proves God's existence. Music has these incredible things it's capable of that point to why God gave us music to begin with. It has this incredible ability to kind of align our mind and our emotions, or to reach to our emotions, kind of bypassing the mind when needed. It can help stir us up to action. It can stir us to emotion. It can uplift the soul. It can help us feel again when we're numb. It can stir us to repentance. All these things, stir us to worship. All these incredible things that music can do. And as we move towards music that, again, from like a listener's side, is being consumed passively, and then also from a creator side is being created passively or created with passive intentions, those features that God intended music to have get stripped away. That this passive music is not reaching your soul. It's not stirring your emotions. It's not challenging your thoughts. It's just entertainment. It's entertainment without all of the other things that music can have. Well, because you're just using it to fill in the space of your day and to add just this little backbone of entertainment to, your job or your chores or whatever else you're doing.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is a thought that popped in my head the first time you were talking, earlier, back a few minutes. Our habits shape the algorithm until the algorithm starts to shape our habits. So It's like the algorithm is built, and I don't just mean the internet algorithm. I mean, I think the whole world you could say operates in this way. Like it's a feedback mechanism, and we learn things through patterns, right? So I've been thinking, to get very deep, I've been thinking about demons a fair amount over the last year or two. And I think they operate similar to an algorithm. Like they study our behaviors, especially Christians, in wanting to attack us. I was just reading this morning in 1 Peter 5, where it connects anxiety to Satan prowling around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him, humble yourselves, cast your cares on the Lord because he cares for you. So there's principalities and powers who hate us, and they've been around for a long time. So they've been studying humans. So they study us. And I think, I think about how if you scroll on a social media platform, but you slow down on something, it kind of takes note of that and puts it in your file so that it knows, I think he might be interested in this thing. In the same way, I think I got deep here with the demon thing, but I think that sometimes we don't even know that we're distracted. We don't even know what's making us passive. But I think there's everything around us is basically learning from us, and then you get more of what you give, essentially. So with the passivity thing, it's almost like there's a handoff if you're not careful. And Christians are told to be careful. And actually, the one passage I was thinking of before our conversation, I think hits exactly on this. Because it's one thing to rest. It's one thing to be silent, to be calm, to be at peace. It's another to be passive. We don't rest passively. We rest actively. We wait patiently on the Lord, which is not just do nothing. It's active waiting. Not to say you're not resting. You're resting in Christ. But there's this lie that passivity is rest, that entertainment is just it's neutral, and it's not. So the passage though is Ephesians 5. And starting with verse 15, he says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise." So we're supposed to look carefully how we walk, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Passivity encourages laziness and uselessness, essentially. So we're to be careful. Then he says, "Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery." So alcohol dumbs us down, dumbs our senses down, and makes us stupid and passive and just easy to manipulate, easy to control. But be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks always for everything to God the Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. So the passivity is exactly what you described from the beginning, Adam. It is a massive... there's a sinful element. It's hard to define it exactly as the sin of passivity. There's other things that you could use, biblical terms that you could use to define it, but it puts you in such danger. And I think basically where we're headed for culturally, and maybe we're already there, is that people are just so easy to manipulate because they're,
Yeah, I mean, that's been one of the huge dangers with ChatGPT in general.
It's a feedback loop. You tell it what you think. It tells you what it thinks that you want to think. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's the algorithm learns from you, and then you learn from it. And it's
Right.
It takes all the worst possible things that you do and exaggerates them and hypnotizes you with them, essentially.
Right, and it kind of becomes this passivity machine in a sense where you stop challenging yourself, you stop challenging the machine, you stop seeking God. Even that, I think if we talk about passivity with music, we could also talk about passivity with podcasts or just kind of always having entertainment and distractions in the background. I think that is a huge detriment to the Christian life when, if we always have noise in our ear, we are not in a position to be listening to the Lord, to be meditating on Scripture, to be, open to hearing the Holy Spirit. We are not, ever present in prayer as we ought to be. And it creates this kind of unintentional cutoff between us and the Lord that, like, for the sake of just being distracted, for the sake of being just constantly entertained with, artists that we're not even paying attention to, songs that we may not even know if they're AI or not, podcasts where we think we're learning something cool, but we're going to forget it the next day.
We pretend that we're growing in our knowledge, but it's really just entertainment.
Well, yeah, and it's a passivity issue too, though. There's a phenomenon psychologically. I can't go into depth about it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on this, but at the very least, it's a theory that if your brain is always in intake mode and never in output mode, your brain starts to lose the function to really kind of teach or explain or use critical thinking. And so it's one thing if you're learning something from a podcast and then you go write about it, podcast about it, talk to a friend about it, or really use that information, go out and listen to a podcast about gardening and then go work in your garden. That is the type of behavior that keeps your brain and your soul active and actually helps you soak in the information that you've obtained. But if all you ever do is constant intake and you're just learning and learning and learning and soaking in and soaking in and soaking in without ever using it, then that kind of using it muscle in your brain is going to grow weaker. And again, it just kind of points to passivity is not neutrality. Passivity is decay.
Right. Well, I mean, that just made me think. Jesus says, anyone who hears my words and puts them into practice is like a man who builds his house on a rock, and when the storm comes, it beats on the house, but it stands firm, it doesn't fall. But who hears, I mean, you can take in things all day long, and if you never put them into practice, then you're actually worse off.
Right.
So,
I mean, elsewhere in Scripture, we're told that we will be held accountable for the things we know.
Mm-hmm.
So, as Christians, we're putting ourselves in grave danger if we're just constantly listening to sermons and Christian podcasts and lectures and all that, and then not actually using it, not living by it.
Yeah. I mean, funny enough, too, we learn all these principles from the Bible that are true across, can be applied to all sorts of things. But the best way to learn, everyone knows this, is to learn something, then teach somebody else. Mm-hmm. It solidifies it practically in your mind, which is, and it also makes you more accountable to that thing. So this is why even most Christians are not going to be a teacher within the church, but they should absolutely be teaching things to people. And that can just be through conversation. Hey, I learned this thing. I was thinking about this passage. What do you think about? Yeah, I realized X, Y, Z. Oh, I never thought about that. I mean, you're just having conversations. But if you're not engaging, you are totally you're being deceived. And the thought I had as this relates to the church, as I've gotten on social media for Sower, Instagram in particular is the most successful platform. It's mind-boggling to me. My mind's trapped in a bottle. That was Will Ferrell said that in a movie or whatever. I guess mind-boggling is the dictionary pronunciation. But to me, the number of people, professing Christians who just listen to sermons and don't go to church is wild. How in the world can you practice any of this stuff? Love each other, weep, mourn together, rejoice together. The body of Christ, 1 Corinthians 12.
Greet each other with a holy kiss.
Yeah, I mean, how are we supposed to do that with these screens in our way?
Right.
I'm coming down there to kiss you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll be ready. Again, I think it's this bent we have towards passivity is damaging us far beyond most of us realize. And that's kind of the point. Like, passivity, if we would, personify it and give it like an intention, it wants us to not realize that we are decaying, that we're losing something, that we're trading in, that we are, taking music that's supposed to be stirring us up to action and to worship and belittling it to mere entertainment. Even in my own life, like I literally just had an example of this last night. Not trying to be, pertinent to the podcast or anything. But it's been very common for me in recent months, actually recent years, been very common for me in recent years to go to bed most nights with an AirPod in my ear, listening to a podcast or a YouTube video just to kind of like decompress and turn my brain off and fall asleep as people are talking in my ear. And I realized last night that I used to go to bed praying. Like, I used to make it a point to fall asleep in prayer so that the last moments of my day would be spent with the Lord.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been the norm for me in years because it became my habit to go to sleep with a random podcaster in my ear instead.
Yeah. That sounds like
that hit me like a ton of bricks last night.
Well, good. Praise God.
And it was the bricks that made me fall asleep.
There you go. Yeah, I'm with you. Now, this could feel like to listeners like, well, you're telling me that I can't just enjoy music, and now it's just like I have to put work into it.
Yes. But the enjoyment doesn't go away. The enjoyment actually heightens.
Right.
Sorry, not to interrupt.
No, I mean, exactly. So the other thing is, like, we're not saying that you never just receive and take in, that you're never a passive recipient,
Yeah.
But but they're connected experiences. So Proverbs 18:1 says, anyone who isolates himself breaks out against all sound judgment. And seeks his own desire. So the isolation and the passivity are very intricately connected. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching this podcast, who do you talk to about the music you listen to? Who do you talk to, and how often, about the TV shows and the movies that you watch, the things you entertain yourself with? And if the answer is no one, then you're in danger. And maybe it is like, it's kind of a common theme amongst men, especially, is like they don't have close friendships. And I would say, man, that sucks. Like I can at least recognize that would be a hard place to be in. And then once that's the case, I'm saying very practically, if that's you have to be the one to initiate those friendships. So now it's doubly difficult because you feel lonely and you don't know who to talk to, and nobody invites you to anything, and you go to church and nobody says hi to you. Like everybody, all of these things are pretty common for someone in that scenario to feel. But unfortunately, you don't have the option to blame other people. You have to pursue people. Who are you? I was thinking about this. Speak the truth in love, the Bible says. To who? To someone, and then there's a lot of isolation, and I think I can imagine a lot of people who love music just kind of using it to kind of fill their isolated lives with sound and like a soundtrack. And honestly, I'm tempted by that. Like, I'm basically an extrovert, but I love my introverted moments where I've had this kind of like romanticized dream of where like I could have headphones like implanted and have music as a soundtrack as like I walk around and live my life. It's like my life is now a movie. I mean, I love like, and it feels so rude to me, but I love like if I have to go grocery shopping or something, I'm walking around with music in my ears and just like, it's like my soundtrack. and then I see somebody and I feel rude and I'm like, oh man, I got to take these out. Just, it feels weird to me. But I think even that is something that our younger culture does not understand. Like I have family members and friends and like younger people who will be at dinner with family and have both of their headphones in while they're eating. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happening? So I usually tell them, get those headphones out. You know, like I'm like the old man, like take the headphones out. But it's part of this, like amusing ourselves to death. There's a book I've never read, but, let me say, so we talked about AI a little bit. I do want to get your opinion on this because we haven't talked about it enough. Christians using AI music. What does that even mean? So I will say, I've done a whole podcast on this. It wasn't long, like 8 to 10 minutes or something. But recently there's a pastor named Joseph Spurgeon, and I found somebody mentioned music that I should check out, some Christian music, and I listened to it immediately. It's like, this is AI. Why would you suggest this? And I went and listened to it, and I said, hey, this is AI, not a fan, whatever, you know. And it was Joseph Spurgeon, who's a Christian pastor, and he's like, hey, I write all the lyrics, and I wrote the songs, but I used AI to bring it to life, and, you know, the production and all that. And I noticed that he disclosed it on the page, which I appreciated. And I thought, you know, if somebody is insisting on using it as a tool, at the very minimum, you have to disclose it. And the less you lean on it for the creative aspects, which you could say like the singing is part of the creativity, but it's not as integral as like the melodies and the lyrics and things like that. So I was thinking, like with you, I want to kind of ask you, where do you draw the line? Because I can say I hate that, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I do use AI a lot, and I'm trying to figure out how to use it in a way that's honoring to Christ and that actually helps my creativity and makes me more active and aware and better at what I'm doing rather than the alternative. And it's a dangerous territory, it feels like, but I'm trying it because I really do believe that it's here to stay, essentially, and that those who totally ignore it or like put it off are going to be left behind. But
I'm praying for the AI bubble to pop. I hope it's not here to stay.
And when I say left behind, I don't mean the rapture.
Yeah.
I'm Amil guy.
There are Amil. There's so many ways that I could address that question. So I'll try to tackle it from multiple angles while keeping it concise. But a few minutes ago, you mentioned how passivity and isolation go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And I think AI is arguably both a passivity machine and an isolation machine. Because on the passivity side, it's kind of like it's taking your agency away. It's taking away you putting in the effort to go learn things, to go figure things out, to try things out for yourself. In the case of AI music, it's freeing you up from the need to go learn how to play piano or to learn how to produce music yourself or to become a better singer. So there's all this passivity involved, but it's also this isolation machine where it is begging you to not talk to other people, to not collaborate, to not seek outside help, to especially like these LLMs like ChatGPT. And obviously AI is a massive umbrella that covers too many things. I think for the most part, I'm talking about ChatGPT style LLMs. They want to be your one-stop shop for everything. Your friendship, your romance, your therapy, your recipes, your song lyrics, whatever it is.
My doctor.
Yeah. And so in the case of music, you know, it's like, why go listen to what someone else created, or why go write or play music when all the music you could ever dream up can be right here just for you, made by you, enjoyed by you. And that's the kind of thing. It's like some people are trying to release, actually a lot of people, thousands of people, are releasing AI music to streaming platforms, often as some sort of like scheme to try to make some money off of it, which doesn't work unless, you're one, very lucky, or two, you have the money to put into bots that will stream your music for you to illegally get you the revenue, but that's a different story. But there's
Just
a whole
have
other
AI do it for you.
Well, exactly. There's a whole other realm of this, people using Suno and Udio and similar services, where it's not even about releasing the music. It's just about you being able to enjoy it, whether it's songs within your little niche, or taking your favorite genre, but having it sing the Psalms instead of, love songs or whatever, or just making joke songs. It's again kind of this like passivity machine and this isolation machine of you don't need to put in the work, and you can have this all by yourself in your bedroom without communicating with anyone else. You don't need another human to listen to it, to help you make it, or to hear it. You can just enjoy it by yourself, and that's kind of like the LLMs thrive on creating this independent isolation within its users. And not to go off on a complete rabbit trail, but there are all these cases of AI psychosis forming in people who are like going crazy because they create these like parasitic relationships with their LLMs, and they're just talking to it about everything, and they're getting this terrible advice or being convinced to commit suicide, or like It's a very real thing. Like people are dying or going into misery or going crazy because they're using these LLMs, and through their kind of obsessive pseudo relationship with these predictive text machines, they are like losing their relationships with real people and not getting second opinions, not investing in their friendships and relationships, not going out and writing a song with another human, or saying, like the pastor, like, I wrote these lyrics, let me go find a good singer to sing them. Let me find a great pianist to play them. Let me find a great producer to record them. Or let me find an okay pianist who I'm friends with. Let me find a bad producer that I can help support at the beginning of their career to make these songs for me.
So, well, here's the pushback that you would get, and I'm not sure how much I would agree with this or not, but I can't afford that. So, would your answer just be, well, then don't do it?
My answer would be get creative. Again, it's like if someone is
what if I need Chat GPT to help me be creative?
That's a problem. Say like, hey, like if ChatGPT has become your first go-to for ideas and brainstorming, you as an individual with agency need to nip that habit in the bud now. Whoever you are listening to this now, that habit needs to go. You need to get in the habit of brainstorming things for yourself, talking to friends and family and pastors, whoever else, for ideas, doing legitimate research, whether online or in a library. Do those things before you go to ChatGPT if it's a matter of any importance. Personally, I don't use it at all. I'm basically trying my best to live a zero AI life. We can talk about why later if we have time. But I recognize that there are things of little to no importance where you can go to ChatGPT for it, and it doesn't do much harm to you or the universe. But the problem is, like you said earlier, we are habit-forming individuals that create habits, often unhealthy ones, very easily. And when ChatGPT becomes your reflex go-to for, oh yeah, what was this actor's name? Oh, how do I make this recipe? And you can form a habit to start going to it for more and more important stuff, or for stuff that you should remember, and you're handing your memory over to it. There are very significant studies already coming out about memory decay and de-skilling from people who overuse ChatGPT, or who even just use it a fairly normal amount, and they are forgetting how to do things, or they're when they ask ChatGPT to do something, they're losing the ability to do that themselves. In a similar fashion to how like all of us suck at mental math nowadays because we all carry a calculator in our pockets with us.
So I want to push you around. I'm just kidding. I'll have to come there physically. And actually you're way taller and bigger than me. So, mainly taller. I'm probably bigger this way, but,
I don't think so, but
wow. Chase, where'd you get that baby?
Walmart.
Okay. Wow. All right. So I've been thinking about this, while you're talking is like alcohol. There are some uses for it. I mean, rubbing alcohol is one type of alcohol, that's used to disinfect. Paul says, drink some wine for your stomach. It has, some helpful properties or whatever, but also it's enjoyable. Drunkenness is a sin, and it's very, there's a lot of people who shouldn't drink alcohol because it's too tempting. There's a lot of damage there. But when you take it to technology, it's like, driving, there's dangers to it. Obviously, like there's risk and reward, medicine, risk, reward. So I think of it in that sense, like, money, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Money is not in and of itself bad. So this is where I'm at with it. I think there are ways to use it that I think that people don't know how to use it right. So my focus would be on thinking, how do we use it in a way that's honoring to Christ and that creates good outcomes rather than passivity. And so one of the things you were talking about is like, it doesn't, there are a lot of things that it can do for you that you don't have to do. But I've been thinking about this a lot for the last couple years. So are you taking that mental space that you just freed in those 3 hours that you would have had to use and you're done now in an hour? Are you putting that time and energy into something productive? Because that's what technology should be doing, is it should, it takes 5 minutes to drive somewhere that it would have taken a whole day or, half a day to walk to years ago. So it's like, well, what am I doing with those extra several hours? Am I putting them into productive things? I think that's the big picture of how I look at it. So I've been trying to use it in a way that helps me rather than hurts me. And a couple examples, I've used it for some construction projects, just like step by step. I use it with Sower. I use it, so I'll like throw in information about my album and my ideas on like a campaign to run, like marketing campaign or whatever. And then it'll kind of spit me back out some ideas. So yes, that's creative. But I would say like the real thing that oftentimes we can't do everything, right? As artists, we can't be a graphic designer. We can't be our own marketer or promoter. Like there's a whole lot of things that you're trying to do and accomplish that is outside of your realm of music. So not even talking about AI music, I'm saying that it's like I either hire a person to do this or talk to friends and I would say for me, it's not a clear cut black and white thing that now I'm not learning how to do X, Y, Z. Well, I wasn't going to learn how to do that anyways. I would have had to rely on someone. So then the question becomes, well, whose job is getting stolen because of this thing, right? So it's like, well,
yeah.
if these people's jobs are getting stolen, then maybe there's room for other jobs that didn't exist back then. And so for me, it's like I'm thinking we need, like with AI, somebody needs to write a book, the theology on AI, like where does the Bible speak to these principled ideas, and then help Christians to be like, I don't let my kids use ChatGPT because of the reasons you said. So it's like, for me, I do draw certain lines, but I think the lines are still kind of gray in a lot of these areas. But one clear black and white line is that I think AI music sucks and I hate it. And when I hear it, now when it starts sounding good, I do believe that I'll be really severely disappointed to find out that it was not a human. I'll feel lied to. So as long as there's disclosure, I'm never going to listen to it.
Okay. So in theory, I agree with everything you just said. I recognize I'm fairly harsh on the line of like trying to have no AI in my life at all, as much as I can help it. But again, AI is a very huge umbrella that includes things of like automation and machine learning, stuff that's existed for years that they just call AI now because it's hip and trendy and it's a buzzword and helps sell stocks. But so again, like I'm not trying to throw AI in its entirety under the bus, and I agree with you that for a lot of AI usage, it's a gray area that usually comes with pros and cons. And so the primary thing we need to be doing is using discernment, which, again, not to go off in another direction, but I do think in our current age, we are in a discernment crisis where our entire generation, we're probably multiple generations deep into people who are actively not practicing discernment in day-to-day life. And so it requires someone practicing discernment to use a service like ChatGPT well, in order to know where to draw lines that are healthy for you. And I think the most important rule of thumb that I would give anyone who does use ChatGPT is to never use it for something that is a skill you cherish or something that you really want to be able to do by yourself.
I agree with that line. As long as so I think you could use it to learn how to improve in those areas, which I've done with Pro Tools recently, and
sure,
now I know how to do it. I don't have to ask it again. So the question is, are you learning things? It's intentional.
That takes care and intention, because a lot of studies show that when you go to ChatGPT to learn how to do something, and that becomes a regular habit for you, you become worse and worse at memory retention, and you don't hold on to that information, and instead of remembering it, you go back and ask again next time you need to know. So again, you have to take care and discernment with when you use it, how you use it, and if you need to go to it for how to do something important, make sure you actually use that information and figure out a way to retain it so that you don't need to keep going back to it again and again.
Well, and when you do the thing, if you're actually, that's where I think there's dangers, but when you actually do the thing, that's how you retain it. So like I went in and, I did this thing with Pro Tools, and it told me to do this certain thing to run a bus compressor, or to do a keychain. I don't even remember what it's called, and I'm a producer here. So basically, I did this whole setup, and then now I've done it multiple times now, and I don't have to do it again. But the same kind of problems happen with automation. So like if I save those tracks and I just import the tracks from a previous session, I forget how to do it. I'm not saying that you're not onto something. I think it is dangerous, but I think there's a way to actively use it. I think that be careful how you walk, for the days are evil. I think that if you're a Christian who's growing in discernment, who's involved with actual people, who is not generally passive, and you and I both recognize that it's a temptation and even a sin of our own, laziness, a desire for comfort, but we're fighting it. And I think the bigger danger to what you're pointing at is that general culture is not fighting it. They're going with it.
Well, and if we go back to your example about like your promotion plan, going to ChatGPT to help you figure out a promotion plan for your album. You mentioned like, I could hire someone to do this, or I could, get ChatGPT's help to do it myself. There's a third option there, to do it by yourself and do it pretty blindly and poorly, right?
Sure.
So like, I think, when possible, the better way is always communal and relational. the better way is always to turn to a human instead of to the bot, to the machine. But like there are situations where it's like being good at promotion doesn't matter to you, and you were never going to pay to hire someone to do it anyway. So are you doing the wise thing to get the machine's help on how to do a smarter promotion plan? Probably. And like there's not really a human losing there, because in this example, just
the same argument is made if you can't afford it. You weren't going to do it anyways because you can't afford it.
Yeah. Which, again, going back to the AI music thing, and let's transition to AI music and camp out there for a bit.
Okay.
You know, if we're trying to be creative, communal, and relational, there are always fledgling producers out there willing to work for cheap or free just to get your business. And like you might have to ask around, you might have to put up a Craigslist ad, or, you know, talk to friends, or just try to, you know, get random connections or something. But like those people exist. You know, you probably have a friend or someone you go to church with or someone you work with who can play an instrument decently enough that, you know, you can try to get them to record your song, help you record your song for you. Someone who sings well enough if you don't like your own voice or if you can't carry a pitch, right? Like there are options that, you know, they're harder and will take time probably, or maybe take money, even if you're working with total newbies or non-professionals or whatever it is. And when you go to AI music, if you're using something like Suno or Udio to do those things for you, you are intentionally picking the less human and the less collaborative route. That being said, I think AI music is always going to be better the more human input that it has. So I'm reviewing music for an artist right now who straight up recorded demos of his entire album. Like he wrote the songs by himself. He made demos with the drums, guitars, bass, vocals of these songs that he wrote humanly. And he decided to put them all through AI to make these AI productions of the songs in order to release those instead of the things he recorded. And on a technical level, what he got is far superior. You know, it gets rid of the mistakes and the timing issues and the tuning issues. You know, it's more balanced in its mix, more evocative.
Stop, you're making me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, but it has all the humanness.
That's my
shaved
review
off of it, right?
I haven't even heard it, and that's my honest review.
No, and you're right. And also, it's covered in digital artifacts that have this really like strange sense to them that I find kind of exhausting to listen to, especially like trying to listen to his entire album. It gets to a point where it all sounds so samey and so fake and so perfect.
I hope you're getting paid well for this review.
I'm getting paid a little bit. I wouldn't say well, but it's not for free, so that's something. But you know, it's one of those things where I think once more and more of the market gets flooded with this so-called perfect AI music, you know, I think more and more we'll have people yearning for the crappy stuff. More and more yearning for the singers that aren't, you know, drenched in autotune, and drummers who are a little off, and guitars that are a little out of tune, and stuff that feels real and human.
So, well, here's where I see this heading, and I think you point something out that's very valid, and people should. I mean, I hope people listen to this because I think this is a good, helpful conversation. I think there's different push and pull and angles and things, and it really does come down to discerning how and whether to use this or that or whatever tool. But the problem that I think is very legit is down the line, because I'll just tell you, when I went to college for e-media, which was audio, music recording, audio recording, video production, graphic design. They taught us tape and microphones and sound waves first. Like in my audio classes, they started with equipment that we didn't use anymore. Why? Because all the new equipment is based on that old equipment. And so if you don't know the fundamentals, then at some point you're just pressing buttons blindly. And I think that the biggest risk out of everything you just mentioned is younger people not learning not learning the process and never being able to grow. It's like they're stunting their growth 100%. And I think stunting your growth. So when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about it for myself and, from my own personal view and my discernment. But I do think you're right that the process itself of finding that guy to play on your song and the scheduling, the difficulty of getting it together and going there and saying, oh, that's not what I was thinking. And like the human interaction, that's character building, and that helps you in so many other ways, including music. But without that, with none of that, then you really are, you're untested. It's like the equivalent of like a kid who was raised by helicopter parents. As soon as he meets the real world, or she, they're going to be a huge baby about everything, and they can't take care of themselves. So I think that's the real risk, which is helpful for me because it helps me to think about how my kids are learning things, how my kids are interacting with AI, because it's a part of their future. And that's my argument ultimately, is that it's going to be there. And I do think that using it the right way, using it in a way that doesn't decrease but increases productivity and helps people be successful in the things that honor the Lord, that's the best approach. But I do think there's a lot of danger involved, and like there's a lot of churches that are going to be destroyed because a pastor has for 10 years been having ChatGPT write his sermons. And
yeah, I fear about that too. And the point you made about music is kind of the point I was making earlier, that like ChatGPT, it is not a tool. I think anyone who uses that language needs to really consider what a tool is and what a tool does.
I must be a tool then, because I think it's a tool.
ChatGPT is a service. It is a service. It's not a hammer that you buy once and then you get better at using it over time and you become really good at hitting those nails. There's this element to where it has a mind of its own. It doesn't do exactly what you want or ask it for. It can be completely wrong without you realizing it. You might be trying to get it to do something that no matter how hard you try, it will never be able to do. And behind it is a company that is always trying to make a profit, that will never give up that desire. And so what these LLMs are ultimately are trying to make you dependent on them, so you go to them instead of elsewhere. It's the, Google wants you to use Google instead of Bing or instead of an old encyclopedia or instead of a library times a million, and so, and that's kind of why my rule of thumb is that for things that you want to know how to do, or you really want to learn how to do, or skills that you have that you don't want to lose, never risk handing that over to these LLMs that are trying to make you dependent on them instead of actually trying. Again, I just don't think, they're not a tool to help you get better at something.
Hang on.
They inherently make you worse at these things or keep you from actually learning how to do them for real and in community with other human beings.
Let me fact check that real quick, the last thing you said. Hey, are you a tool that helps me get better at things?
I'd say I'm a tool that can definitely help. But getting better is really your part of the equation.
I figured that would make you a little bit sick to do that on here.
But
I'm trolling you.
I know. I know. You've always been my favorite troll. But if we go back to the music thing, there is a level of deceit that I think exists even in the most ethical of situations with using AI for music. And that smidgen of deceit that exists is, I think, what we should all be scared of. I talked about the artist that I'm reviewing for. I'm not going to say his name. But
Well, it doesn't have a name.
I know his actual name as well as his artist name. But if we're talking about like the scale of less ethical to more ethical, he is very far on the more ethical side, right? He didn't use AI to write his music, to write his lyrics. He just put his full like human played demo into Suno to churn out an AI arrangement of it. Okay. So and even like on streaming services, the songs say AI arrangement. So he's labeling it himself. Full disclosure. Mm-hmm. Again, so he's very much on like the ethical side of the situation. That's one of the reasons I was willing to engage with his music and to review it. Because like it seems like he's doing everything about as good as you could if you're going to be using AI to make your music. But I was reading his Spotify bio, and it's very clearly written by ChatGPT. And as a Christian artist, he effectively allows ChatGPT to lie on his behalf in his artist bio. It contains this sentence: raw, direct, and unflinching. His music isn't about perfection, it's about the fight. It's not raw. It's as polished as can be. And it says his music isn't about perfection. If it wasn't about perfection, you would have released your rough around the edges demos and not put it through the perfection machine. There's another line in his bio that says, at its core, his music is about truth, hard-earned, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Again, I think these are lies. Even though, like, he's using lyrics that he wrote, it would be more hard-earned if he, went through the process of getting a thing properly produced. It says unfiltered. What is a filter if not putting your song through Suno to turn it into a brand new recording?
Well, it's more than a filter. That's how he gets away with it.
Well,
now,
but
it starts with self-deception, though, and that's the point
and that's the thing.
that you're making. It's a lack of discretion and personal discernment.
There's a lot of self-deception, I think, in AI use that also turns into audience deception. I've done this a few times where I've read through the bios of AI artists, and like Christian, supposedly, artists, and almost every single time, especially if the bio is written by ChatGPT or a similar service, the bio contains outright lies. Solomon Ray, one of the really popular ones, his bio talks about how like the raw music was all recorded live.
Shut up.
No, it wasn't. You programmed Suno to put fake audience sounds into your recording. That doesn't mean recorded live. There's another one that like I straight up just like made screenshots of his bio and started circling everything that was a lie and ended up with like 6 circles across the course of his ChatGPT written bio. And it's
I'm
like
gonna do that for real because of this.
When we start letting ChatGPT write our bios, our stories, our lyrics, whatever it is, we are allowing deceit, lies, lack of discernment, lack of discretion, and sometimes outright heresy. Straight up found a Christian artist with like just heretical song titles even. It's like, what are we doing here? And so it is a very big problem that, again, like I think there's a scale. There's worse and there's better. I think not only is the guy I'm reviewing, by the fact that he wrote his music all by himself, that he recorded demos, it's both more ethical and higher quality. Like, the songs that he's getting out of Suno are better songs than if he had Suno write the song from scratch. You know, it's more interesting lyrics and less fallacious lyrics than if Suno had written them. You know, so there is that scale there, but I just don't think there's a place for it in the Christian artistry. Because every time you turn to Suno, you are turning away from a human. You're turning away from a relationship. And that doesn't just mean money. That doesn't just mean paying for someone. That could mean, you know, again, like you and a friend learning how to produce music together, or you developing a friendship with someone who's just getting started and isn't charging money yet, or you learning from a producer so that you can learn how to do it yourself. You forming a band with your neighbors or your church mates. All these options that exist. That for the sake of speed and passivity and ease, you're turning to Suno instead of to humans, and you will never be free from deceit.
Well, Chase, I'm kind of surprised you don't have any strong feelings on this topic.
I research it so much.
I know.
And that's the thing. It's like coming on a podcast like this to be able to talk about it is actually helpful for me because it helps me maintain the stuff I've been learning. It's kind of become a pet topic for me. I'm learning about AI all the time because I'm very interested in it and I'm engaged with it. Like, I don't use it myself, but I have friends who use it to turn their songs into demos.
I use it all the time.
ChatGPT.
So not for music. I don't use it for any creative music, but you're welcome to ask me anything you want ever, and I'll run it through ChatGPT and get you an answer. But,
so it's for me, it's relationally important. It's ethically important, and it's also important because I'm a book editor and a podcast editor and a music producer. So, like, you know, these services are quickly trying to infringe upon all of my businesses and all of my skills. Yeah. So, like, I'm trying to stay on the up and up in terms of being better than Grammarly at editing your book, being better than Suno at editing or producing your songs, but also I want to keep up with the spirituality of it, the keep up with like what's happening with the latest updates with Claude or OpenAI or DeepSeek or whatever, and so it's like I'm not touching it, but I'm learning about it, and then by being here with you, you know, thank you for the invite to your podcast. I'm able to help that information stay in my brain because I'm talking about it and trying to teach about it and share about it. And discuss it. So it's helpful for me.
Well, I appreciate you. Let's wrap up with a couple things. One, so I assume, I mean, there's a fair amount of musicians who would listen to this podcast, and they're probably engaged by this, and who knows how they feel about where you're at. You and I come from a little bit different places, but big picture, we're the same on our view of AI, I think. So regardless of AI, just anything we've talked about, how would you encourage artists, whether they're new or have been doing this a long time, to stay active in music? Like, you've already mentioned a few things, but kind of wrap it up by giving a few bullet points. Yeah. How do you stay active with the music you're writing? And then also the listeners, how do listeners stay active?
Yeah. Well, I think an artist needs to be an active listener as well. So, you know, your last question, how do listeners stay active? That needs to apply to the artist. I frankly, I don't want to support or listen to music that isn't made by someone who also loves music and is a very deep, thoughtful, tasteful music listener. In the same way that I don't want to read a book written by someone who doesn't read books. You know, like that's crazy to think. And so across the board, active listening, you know, like don't feel the need to have music on at all times. Don't allow music to be boiled down to a utilitarian role in your life where it's just the entertaining noise in the background. Have time where you turn it off. And then also have time where you sit down with your lyric booklet open and just read through the lyrics and see who wrote what and who played what. Give yourself that. And
And also sing along. That is a great way to be an active listener. Learn the lyrics. And if they're lyrics that you want coming out of your mouth, if they're lyrics that you want to be shaping your heart and shaping your thoughts, sing your heart out. That's one of the saddest forms of passivity is just to never participate with the music you listen to. You don't have to be a good singer. You don't need to be in tune. You don't need to be heard by anyone else, or you can just turn the music up loud enough in your car where your bad singing doesn't bother the people with you. But sing.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge one.
Well, sing in church as well. Like, it's easy.
Absolutely.
It's actually a temptation for me to be active during worship sometimes, or to not be. So I have to force myself to sing and to think about, because music is such a big part of my life that it's just, I have maybe a different relationship with music, but I think everybody struggles with that. Like, it doesn't feel good always to sing on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You have to force yourself to do it for the sake of worshiping Christ. It's not always feeling good to pray, to read the Bible.
Right. And one of the things that is so amazing about music is that it can go ahead of our heart and ahead of our mind and help lead us in the right direction. It can help kind of stir up emotions where there weren't any. And this is something I often say when I get chances to lead worship, is that, I don't want you only singing these lyrics if you really feel them. I think you should sing these lyrics because you believe they are true. And by singing true things that align with Scripture and align with the character of God, you can help guide your heart and lead your heart into feeling them again, into really believing them in your gut again.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons why, I think singing before a sermon can be a really good thing, and why I think it's good that most churches do that. Because if you're going into church feeling like a piece of crap, or just being really tired, or you got really angry at your kids on the way there, singing can help kind of break that down and help kind of make your heart ready for the sermon.
Yeah.
But I think that is one of the things that music can do Monday through Saturday as well, to help keep your heart soft, to help keep your heart open to the Lord. But if you're only passively listening and you're not actively engaging with it, then you're not going to enjoy that benefit.
Right. Now for the artist.
Yeah, so for the artist side, and for one, it's when you're writing, be thinking about music having that purpose. Don't create music that is only meant for passive enjoyment. Music is meant to be so much more than entertaining. You can create a fun song every now and then. You can make funny songs. There's nothing wrong with a song that's, entertaining. But if you are called by the Lord to be making music, if you, like I do, just kind of feel like music is your native language, and you make music because it feels like an extension of who God created you to be, then don't settle for mere entertainment. Don't settle for writing what you think is going to be trendy on Spotify playlists or radio or whatever. Try to write songs that really mean something to you, that really mean something to who your audience is, and try to actually write for your audience. Your audience might be your daughter, your dad, your neighbor. You might have a big fan base that you're actually in touch with and think this is a song I want them to hear. But a big thing that I do in my songwriting, that maybe this will benefit someone, is I try to write songs about anything that I really want to remember. And again, it's if we talk about ChatGPT is harming people's memories, because if you have every answer in the world on your phone at your fingertips, then your brain starts to lose the ability to hold on to itself, because your brain wants the easier route. Your brain wants to do less work. So if your brain knows that instead of remembering something, you can just ask ChatGPT real quick, that's the route it's going to take. And so, like, when we talk about, like, using AI in our lives, we're kind of at war with our own memories. And I say that as someone whose memory stinks to begin with. I have a famously terrible memory. I surprise my wife all the time with things that I cannot recall for the life of me. So as a songwriter, one of the best things that I can do with my songs is to put to tape, put to chord, put to melody, put to lyric, the things that I want to never forget. Whether it's an adorable moment with my daughter, or an extremely incisive conversation with a friend or my wife or someone, or a lesson from the Lord, something really amazing in Scripture. Like, these are the kind of things that inspire a lot of my songs, because, and I don't think we really talked about this earlier, but another one of the important uses of music, and I think one of the reasons why God gave us music, is it because it helps us remember things.
Yeah.
If you look at, like, the songs of, like, Moses and stuff throughout the Old Testament, a lot of them, like, were songs of remembrance. Like, we're going to sing a song and write a song and put it into, you know, these documents that we're writing that would later become the Old Testament, because we want these things to be remembered for generations to come.
Yeah,
I want to just remember it a year from now, so I'm going to write a song about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good challenge for me, and I've been taking you up on that challenge on this new album that I'm working on before you gave it to me. But I recognized a need to shift from more writing for me as the audience and writing for fans. And I didn't know there were no fans when I first started writing for Sower. So I've got a lot more singable songs and choruses on this new album that I think will be fun. And I think, I mean, it's funny, like, a kid came up to me, like a 4 or 5 year old kid came up to me at church the other day, and I didn't even know who he was. And he's like, "I like your music." I was like,
That's awesome.
"Cool. Thank you." I was like, "What's your name?" And he told me, and I said, "What's your last name?" Because I'm trying to figure out, who are your parents? And he said, "I don't know my last name yet." It's like, dude, I need to write a song for this kid.
Oh, that's great.
But yes. Think about why you're doing it, and do it intentionally. And I think if anybody takes away anything, like, the big picture, I think, comes back to that Ephesians 5 thing. Like, be careful how you walk. Mm-hmm. The days are evil. We have to have our eyes open, our spiritual eyes open. We have to be discerning. How do we grow in discernment? We know it. Like, let our minds be transformed. But do not be conformed to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your minds, so you can discern what is good and perfect and pleasing to the Lord. So we need the Scripture, we need community, we need the church, we need these conversations, we need people. And I'd say, if anybody's listening and you don't have people, I mean, I'll pray that, afterwards, I'll pray that anybody listening would find people. But you need a church, you need to pursue relationships. And that's the bottom line. That's what Chase ultimately doesn't want, to see people drift into passive isolation. And right. I'm with you 100% on that. So thank you so much for having this conversation. Give a quick last reminder on how to find all of your stuff.
Yeah. So at Chase Tremaine everywhere, Tremaine, Maine like the state. I would especially love kind of follows on Bandcamp, or people to consider joining my friends club, friends.chasetremaine.com, for $2 a month, where I post weekly podcasts and monthly songs and other cool things. Plus, you get my whole discography by joining, including an early copy of my new album that is currently nowhere else. So lots going on. Plus, I record songs for people and edit books for people. If you're listening to this and you're a book author, I do free consultations based on, like, the first few chapters of your book. So if you would like feedback on your book and would consider working with me,
hit me up. You can email me music@chasetremaine.com.
All right, thank you. I am a friend of Chase Tremaine, so I'm
That's right.
I'm a member, so you guys should all be too. Thank you very much. God bless you, brother.